When she was 16 years old, Annalise Michaels started eating her own hands and drinking her own urine while suffering from seizures and delusions. But her devout Christian family denied medical reasoning and instead blamed the devil. She underwent 67 exorcisms and weighed less than 70 pounds at the time of her negligent death. If you're close enough to a nuclear blast, you'll die with no pain because the explosion will kill you faster than your brain can detect pain. This eerie 1986 Twin Towers advertisement speaks for itself. In 1989, a Los Angeles woman received a phone call from her brother-in-law saying that her ex-husband was on his way to kill her. She dialed 911 but was told nothing could be done unless he showed up at her house. Within 15 minutes, he arrived, killing her and 4 other women who were celebrating her 27th birthday. These are some of the weirdest books in the world. Codex Gigas, aka the Devil's Bible, is the largest medieval book in the world, weighing in at 165 pounds. Its author is unknown, but it's estimated that it would have taken at least 30 years to complete. Legend tells that the scribe sold his soul to the devil so that he could write the book in one night. The Voynich manuscript is a 15th century codex of unknown origins. It features a mystery language and illustrations of plants that don't exist. Hundreds of codebreakers have attempted to decipher its meaning, but none have been successful. Codex Seraphinianus is a beautifully drawn encyclopedia of an unknown world. It's also written in a cryptic language as even the author himself can't decipher it. He claims that the real author was a possessed cat who telepathically guided his hands and thoughts. After being convicted for the murder of Deborah Reese in 1993, Liddell Lee maintained his innocence for 24 years. Before his execution in 2017, his last words were, "I am an innocent man." Just a few days ago, a different man's DNA was found on the murder weapon. Female ducks are raped so frequently that many species have developed a second decoy vagina through evolution. They can offer it to intruders that they don't want to be impregnated by. Only 1 out of every 1,000 sea turtles born actually make it to adulthood. Fatal familial insomnia is a rare incurable brain disease that progressively destroys your brain's ability to sleep. Eventually you stop sleeping altogether, go completely insane, suffer from seizures, and die from cardiac arrest. After Vincent van Gogh shot himself in the chest with a revolver, he managed to walk home and see 2 doctors. But since neither of them was a surgeon, they couldn't remove the bullet, and they left him alone in his room smoking a pipe. He died the next morning with his brother by his side, who said Vincent's last words were, "The sadness will last forever." A girl who grew up in Auschwitz drew this picture of home while living in a residence for disturbed children. When Elvia Cortez went to feed her cows one morning, 4 men quickly approached her and put a bomb around her neck. They left a tape asking for $7,500 and threatened to set off the bomb if she tried to disarm it. Elvia called the police and a bomb tech showed up later in the day to remove it. A few hours later, the bomb suddenly went off and killed both of them, and the men responsible were never found. It's estimated that about 300,000 years ago, 9 different species of human walked the earth. By 10,000 years ago, all of them had been wiped out due to the rise of a new species, Homo sapien. Baby owls have to sleep face down because their heads are too heavy to hold up. Great Percheron horses are born black and slowly turn white. This is the same stallion over a 12-year span. The Dong Tao chicken, aka the dragon chicken, is an extremely rare breed that only exists in Dong Tao, Vietnam. Oysters produce pearls as a defense mechanism. When a parasite gets stuck in their bodies, they ease the pain by coating it in a substance called nacre. Layer upon layer of this fluid is deposited until a shiny pearl is formed. These are some of the craziest body modifications that people have received. A man named Adam Curlycale tattooed more than 90% of his body, including his eyeballs. He also dyed all of his hair white in order to look like a photo-negative version of himself. A man named Henry Damon has undergone substantial body modifications to look like Red Skull. He removed his nose and tattooed his entire face red and his eyeballs black. A woman named Pixie Fox has undergone 15 surgeries to look like Jessica Rabbit. She even had 6 of her ribs removed to replicate the cartoon character's tiny waist. After removing his nose, this Brazilian tattoo artist spent $500 to have tusks attached to his teeth. And finally, a Filipino man has undergone 23 surgeries to look like Superman. Doctors urged him to stop after they found out he had been using poisonous fillers to achieve his dream. Cristiano Ronaldo refuses to get any tattoos because he doesn't want them to affect his ability to frequently donate blood. The ashes of Stephen Hawking were buried between the graves of Isaac Newton and Charles Darwin. As a final tribute, the European Space Agency beamed recordings of Hawking's voice to the nearest black hole. A Chilean boy with brain cancer gained 5 million subscribers in 2 days after the Hispanic community found out about his dream of becoming a YouTuber. A man from Oregon named Kirk Alexander was saved by not ordering a Domino's pizza. After 7 straight years of ordering every day, he went almost 2 weeks without one, which worried the staff. A delivery driver later stopped by his home and heard him screaming for medical help before dialing 911. Prioritizing anything over Kim's family is considered blasphemy. A mother recently faced jail time for trying to save her children instead of a portrait of the former president during a fire. Watching porn or reading the Bible are both crimes punishable by death in North Korea. Kim Jong-un released a list of haircuts that people in the country are allowed to have. There are 28 state-approved hairstyles that people can keep, otherwise they can expect jail time. Citizens are also forbidden from having the same name as the current president. So when Kim Jong-un took office in 2012, everyone named Kim was forced to change their name. Falling asleep while Kim speaks will fetch you a serious capital punishment. In 2015, the former defense minister was executed with an anti-aircraft gun after doing so. But hey, they got legal weed, so I mean... In 1996, a man's body floated up to a boat in the UK seas. There was no identification on the body except for a 25-year-old Rolex Oyster on his wrist. As Rolex maintained such meticulous service records, they were able to identify the victim and ultimately the killer. On average, men receive 63% longer sentences than females for the exact same crime. Nigerian scammers once sold a fake airport to a major international bank for $242 million. The scam wasn't discovered until 3 years later. Portugal decriminalized all drugs 20 years ago and has viewed addiction as a public health crisis rather than a crime. Ever since then, Portugal has had one of the lowest percentages of drug addicts in all of Europe. There's a tree in Pakistan that has been chained and officially arrested since 1898. This happened when a drunk British officer thought the tree was moving toward him, so he ordered a sergeant to arrest it. In 2004, this woman from Georgia tried to use a fake $1 million bill to buy $2,000 worth of products from Walmart. She said she thought the bill was real and expected $998,000 in change. In 2008, an entire beach was stolen from a resort in Jamaica. No arrests were ever made and 500 truckloads of sand remain missing to this day. 34-year-old Vladimir Sankin is facing 15 years in prison after beating a pedophile to death. He did this after learning that children were being lured to the pedophile's house before being given alcohol and forced to strip naked. This painting was created by Maria Farmer, the first victim to speak out against Jeffrey Epstein. She claims this is an FBI diagram of the circle of connections to Epstein. It features people like the Clintons, Bill Gates, and the Rothschilds, and depicts Ghislaine Maxwell as a bloodthirsty reptile. Artist William Udermolen was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease in 1995. Over the next 5 years, he drew these self-portraits of himself, which display the devastating effects of the disease. This was painted by serial killer John Wayne Gacy, aka the Killer Clown, while in prison. It depicts him as Snow White and expresses the strange obsession he had with the 7 dwarves. President FDR was having a portrait painted of himself when he suffered a stroke. He died later that day, and this unfinished portrait captured his final waking moments. In 1932, Australia declared war on about 20,000 emus that were destroying farmland. While a number of birds were killed, the emu population persisted and ended up winning the war. Switzerland's military has remained neutral since 1815, but the entire country is rigged to explode. Thousands of demolition points are wired into bridges, highways, and railroads across the nation to quickly halt invaders. During World War II, German tank drivers in Africa would drive over camel poop for good luck. The Allies caught wind of this and responded by planting landmines disguised as camel poop. Once the Germans realized this, they began running over piles that already had tire tracks over them. In turn, the Allies made mines that looked like overrun camel poo. This is a painting of George Bush throwing paper airplanes at 2 Jenga towers that are knocked over. It clearly signifies Bush's involvement in 9/11, but the weirdest part is that it was found in the home of his former friend Jeffrey Epstein. This is a series of paintings by Louis Wayne from the early 1900s. They capture a slow descent into the varying levels of his schizophrenic episodes. The artist who painted The Anguished Man used his own blood and committed suicide shortly after it was finished. The current owner believes it is cursed and says he heard screaming in the middle of the night after hanging it up. This painting from 1902 has an amazing secret that can only be seen with a mirror placed in the middle. The left half depicts a man with his back to serene mountains in a calm sea. This is God. On the right half is a man with his back to a volcano in a dark, stormy sea. This is the devil. In 1965, a Ukrainian farmer dug up the lower jawbone of a mammoth. Further excavations revealed 4 huts that were made completely out of mammoth bones. They're estimated to be around 15,000 years old. This 110-million-year-old nodosaur fossil is so well preserved that many scientists refer to it as a mummy. It was accidentally discovered by miners in Canada who initially thought it was just a weird rock formation. These heart-shaped amethyst geodes were discovered just a few months ago by a mining company in Uruguay. A group of archaeologists discovered this massive claw while digging down in a cave in New Zealand. Turns out it was the 3,300-year-old claw of a moa bird which went extinct centuries ago. In 1996, a 3-year-old boy fell into a gorilla enclosure at Brookfield Zoo in Illinois. As employees were fearing the worst, a young mother gorilla named Binti ran over to the boy and picked him up. To everyone's surprise, she carried him over to the exhibit door so that rescue workers could retrieve him. In the year 2000, a man named Kevin Hines survived a jump from the Golden Gate Bridge but broke his spine on impact. But he was miraculously saved by a wild sea lion who kept him afloat until the Coast Guard could reach him. In 2005, an Ethiopian girl was being beaten by 4 kidnappers when a pride of lions chased them away. They even stayed with her until help arrived. Some experts say the lions may have spared the girl because her crying sounded like the meowing of lion cubs. Others suggest that they were just getting ready to eat her when authorities arrived. Found in Sri Lanka, this male adult elephant was the first scientific record of dwarfism in the wild. He measures at just over 5 feet in height. Believe it or not, but crocodiles are more closely related to birds than they are to lizards. The Zolo is an ancient Aztec dog breed native to Mexico. They were once considered to be guide dogs for dead people entering the underworld. This giant rock in Finland has been resting perfectly on a curved surface for over 8,000 years. Sperm whales are the largest toothed predator on the planet but lack teeth in their upper jaw. Instead, they have tooth pockets that encompass the teeth of their lower jaw. The assassin bug wears the corpses of its prey like a backpack. After stabbing its prey and slurping out the innards, the insect uses the corpses as armor and camouflage. Described by the media as the world's worst serial killer, Luis Garavito is responsible for the rape and murder of over 100 young boys. After a total of only 22 years served, he will be released from Colombian prison this year. After teenager Amy Billig disappeared in 1974, her mother began receiving phone calls from a man claiming Amy was serving as his slave. The chilling calls continued for more than 20 years, but the case was never solved. In 1933, a doctor named Carl Tanzler raided the grave of a female patient with whom he'd become obsessed before she died. He stole her body from the tomb and lived with her corpse for 7 years. As her body fell apart, he attached the bones together using coat hangers and fitted her face with glass eyes. He was only caught when someone saw him dancing with the corpse in front of an open window. The platypus has no nipples. Instead, milk simply oozes from the mother's skin. In 2019, scientists were baffled when a 36-foot humpback whale was found in the Amazon rainforest. While a few theories have been put forth, wildlife experts are still scratching their heads as to how it got there. This absolute unit of a mountain lion was captured on a trail cam in Alberta, Canada. Despite being the largest mammal in the history of the world, blue whales do not have large buttholes. Instead, they defecate with an anus the size of a grapefruit. When caterpillars go into their chrysalis, they turn into a soupy liquid. However, as a moth or a butterfly, they can still remember their life as a caterpillar. A calf with 3 eyes was recently born in Wales. The vet who took the picture said she'd never seen anything like it before. When Pablo Picasso died in 1973, his wife wouldn't allow their grandson Pablito attend the funeral. Little Pablito responded by drinking a bottle of bleach, which damaged his organs so badly that he couldn't eat anymore. After 3 months of suffering, he died. Lake Nyos in Cameroon periodically releases a cloud of invisible carbon dioxide that suffocates everything within a 16-mile radius. In 1986, 1,700 people and all of their livestock suddenly died without even understanding what was happening to them. In 1949, Timothy Evans was wrongly executed for murdering his wife and daughter. The actual murderer, John Christie, was a prosecution witness at Evans's trial. After Evans was executed, Christie went on to kill 4 more people. The government didn't acknowledge that Evans was innocent until 2004. Lama Itigilov was a Buddhist said to have reached nirvana, the final goal of Buddhism. This is due to the lifelike state of his corpse, which is not subject to macroscopic decay even though he was never embalmed. He died in 1927, and upon the latest examination in 2005, scientists stated his body was in the condition of someone who had died just 36 hours ago. In 2009, an Indian doctor removed 172,000 kidney stones from a single kidney. Both the patient and surgeon now hold Guinness World Records that will hopefully never be broken. In 1961, Soviet doctor Leonid Rogozov was working in Antarctica when he realized he had appendicitis. He knew he would die if his appendix wasn't removed, but he was the only doctor on the expedition. So he ended up performing the surgery on himself and miraculously recovered. Tom Block is a U.S. Army veteran who took a suicide vest to the face during a mission in Afghanistan. After countless surgeries and learning how to walk again, he is now helping federal law enforcement hunt down pedophiles. He hopes that one day the Captain America shield in his eye will be a symbol that children are safe. A cafe in Japan is hiring paralyzed people to control robot servers so that they can still make an income. An 8-year-old girl once found a 4-leaf clover and gave it to her daddy for good luck. When her father died, she found out he'd been keeping it in his pocket every day for 20 years. When the story of a 5-year-old boy fighting a rare type of cancer went viral in the UK, nearly 5,000 people stood in line for hours in the rain to see if they could be a stem cell donor. Eventually, they found one person who was the perfect match. This is a photo of a professional violinist playing her instrument as surgeons remove a tumor from her brain. Doctors asked her to play the violin so that her musical abilities wouldn't be damaged during the procedure. A man spent 5 years writing a 2,000-page suicide note about the meaningless of life before taking his own life at Harvard University. His family and friends received the massive note in a posthumous email. The note is still available online and can still be read today. In 1944, a group of American airmen were shot down by the Japanese. Out of the 10 men, 9 of them were captured, tortured, executed, and cannibalized. The only man who evaded capture and survived was future President George H.W. Bush. In August of 2000, the band Dream Theater recorded a live studio album called Live Scenes from New York. The album cover art features the skyline of New York City on fire, and the craziest part is that it was released on September 11, 2001. This 3,000-year-old sculpture of an Egyptian princess looks exactly like Michael Jackson. After a family lost their dog during Hurricane Sandy, they decided to give up and find a new one 2 years later. So they went to the local shelter, and the first animal the counselor showed them was their missing dog. This faulty Five Below sign still says the same thing. In 1974, a mother dying from cancer gave a special ring to her son, but he lost it in a river 2 weeks later. After 39 years passed, a diver found the ring underwater and returned it to the man, who was in the hospital dying from cancer. Within the walls of Alcatraz, Al Capone's brain completely melted due to untreated neurosyphilis. It got to the point where he would throw his feces at the other inmates and was paroled early because he was deemed too much of a lost cause to be a threat. When he died at the age of 48, he had the mental capacity of a 12-year-old. While Charles Darwin is famous for his work on evolution, he also killed and tasted every species of animal that he discovered. As many as 3 U.S. presidents, as well as Abe Lincoln's son, likely died as a result of contaminated water in the White House. Until 1850, there was no sewage system, and a field of human excrement called night soil flowed freely into the water supply. These are some morbid facts that you didn't know about the Challenger explosion. NASA originally planned on sending Big Bird on the Challenger to get children interested in space travel. But the Big Bird suit was too big, so they ended up sending teacher Krista McAuliffe instead. Shortly after takeoff, the Challenger exploded while millions were watching live on CNN, including McAuliffe's entire school. One of the main engineers behind the rocket revealed that NASA ignored his warnings against launching in cold weather. The night before the launch, he told his wife, quote, "It's going to blow up." He was one of 5 engineers who voiced their concerns to NASA prior to the launch. Despite initial reports by NASA, the astronauts likely didn't die immediately from the blast. They might have spent the last 3 minutes of their lives consciously plummeting to Earth at 200 miles an hour. Serving in the US military, Mr. T was ordered by a sergeant to chop down trees as a punishment. He ended up cutting down more than 70 trees in about 4 hours until a shocked major superseded the sergeant and ordered him to stop. In 1916, there was a proposed amendment to the US Constitution that would put all acts of war to a national vote. Anyone who voted yes would have to register as a volunteer for service in the US Army. The Battle of Normandy was so intense that about 4% of the sand at Normandy Beach is made up of broken down shrapnel from D-Day. To fight in World War I, a lot of young boys had lied about their age, but Serbian soldier Momcilo Gavric was easily the youngest. He was accepted into his unit at the age of 7 and was promoted to corporal by the time he turned 8. The death of Metallica singer James Hetfield's mom inspired him to write the song The God That Failed. She died when he was 16 due to Christian beliefs influencing her to reject cancer treatment. In 1999, a waitress was tipped a lottery ticket and won $10 million. She was then sued by her colleagues for their share. Afterwards, she was sued by the man who tipped her the ticket. Then she was kidnapped by her ex-husband and ended up shooting him in the chest. Lastly, she went to court against the IRS for more than a decade before finally winning. In 1825, painter Samuel Morse received a letter which read that his wife was sick. The next day, he received a new letter which read that she had died. 2 days later, he went to see his wife one last time only to discover she had already been buried. Distraught over the slowness of long-distance communication, he invented the Morse code. In 1979, billionaire Richard Branson released a hot air balloon shaped like a UFO over the streets of London. The next morning, local police forces were mobilized and even the army was alerted. When the balloon landed, Branson had also paid a little person to walk out dressed as E.T. In 1948, a man named Tony Signorini stomped around a beach in Florida wearing this pair of 30-pound lead shoes. For the next 40 years, he had locals convinced that a 15-foot-tall penguin was waddling around the area. On April 1st, 1975, residents of Sitka, Alaska woke up to the nearby dormant volcano blowing out black smoke. When a Coast Guard pilot went to investigate, he found 70 burning tires and the words April Fool spray painted into the snow. Months before his sudden death, Mythbuster Grant Imahara built a fully animatronic Baby Yoda. After spending 3 months of his personal time designing and programming the robot, he intended on bringing it to hospitals to cheer up sick children. William Kyle Carpenter threw himself in front of a grenade in Afghanistan to shield his best friend. He's the youngest living recipient of the Medal of Honor and has progressed incredibly well in his recovery. This bride's father died 10 years ago and his heart was donated. The man who received the transplant ended up walking her down the aisle. In 2010, Gary Richmond was senselessly beaten into a coma and barely made it through emergency surgery. He woke up with no memory of his wife of 20 years but ended up falling in love with her all over again. This is why saturation diving is one of the highest paying jobs in the world. In 1983, 4 rig workers were working deep in a diving chamber in the North Sea. When one of the men opened a hatch too early, the chamber quickly depressurized and dropped from 9 atmospheres of pressure to 1 in less than a second. All 4 men were killed instantly as the pressure was so explosive that it caused 3 of the divers' blood to flash boil. The 4th diver wasn't any luckier as he was forced through a small opening and violently torn apart. According to the autopsy, all of the organs of his chest were launched out of his body and projected upwards more than 30 feet. All of the men likely died immediately, but the investigators were never the same after discovering such a gruesome scene. These are some of the weirdest pets ever owned. Mark Dumas has a pet polar bear that purrs when he's around. They wrestle each other, swim together, and even sleep together. In Japan, there's a pet penguin named Lala. Every day, he walks into town wearing a backpack and collects fish from the local market. In the 1950s, a Texas businessman got a lion named Blondie as a family pet. She often gave rides to the kids and died of old age as a beloved member of the family. In 1989, a Costa Rican fisherman rescued a dying crocodile and they instantly became friends for life. The croc knew how to perform many tricks and even responded when his name was called. This is a photo of Salvador Dali taking his pet anteater for a stroll. A man from South Africa adopted a baby hippo after it was rescued from a river. 5 years later, the hippo dragged him into the same river and mauled him to death. If you're not a fan of traditional burials, one of these alternatives might be for you. If you have faith in future technology being able to revive people, you can pay $200,000 to have your body frozen in a chamber of liquid nitrogen. The Scottsdale Cryonics facility currently holds over 100 deceased people who are all hoping to one day be brought back to life. If you want to go out in style, you can hire a cremation artist to turn your ashes into a galaxy orb like these ones. There's also a company that makes special urns that cast a shadow of the deceased person's face. This is the first living coffin made from mushrooms. It's designed to decompose your body within 2 years so that you can become one with nature. More of an ocean person? Luckily, you can have your ashes made into the base of an eternal coral reef. And if planet Earth doesn't suit you eternally, you can pay a company called Celestis $2,500 to blast your ashes into orbit. A group of blue dogs was recently spotted in Russia near an abandoned chemical factory. It's believed they were exposed to chemicals used to make plexiglass, but doctors say they appear to be in good health. Despite its reputation for spiders, nobody has died from a confirmed spider bite in Australia since 1979. But many deaths have occurred due to people being surprised by them, such as while driving. When mating, flatworms engage in violent penis fencing to determine who will be the father. The winner who stabs the other with its pecker remains a male while the other becomes a female. Immediately after banging, a female praying mantis will rotate her head 180 degrees and eat the head of the male. Therefore, the male has an extra brain in its rear, so it can continue mating without a head. Guitar legend Jimi Hendrix once wrote a song called The Ballad of Jimmy that contained these lyrics. Almost exactly 5 years later to the day, he died of an accidental drug overdose. In 1974, Hall of Famer Pistol Pete Maravich told a reporter, "I don't want to play 10 years in the NBA and then die of a heart attack at age 40. He ended up playing 10 seasons and died of a heart attack in 1988 at the age of 40. Mark Twain was born in 1835, shortly after Halley's Comet was passing by Earth. In 1909, he would later say, "I came in with Halley's Comet in 1835 and I expect to go out with it." He died on the exact day the comet appeared in 1910. The lead singer of Lynyrd Skynyrd would always say that he wouldn't live to 30. Even when he was a child, he would tell his father, "Daddy, that's my limit." Sure enough, when he was 29, Ronnie Van Zant died in a plane crash. Before his rise to power, Hitler escaped death numerous times. When he was 4 years old, a priest saved him from drowning in a freezing cold river. While fighting in World War I, he was spared by a British soldier who aimed in and realized that the wounded German would be no threat. In 1924, Hitler was arrested for high treason, the punishment for which was typically execution. However, the judge let him live since he believed that Hitler had good intentions. In 1938, Hitler was Time magazine's Person of the Year, and the year after that, he was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. While his actions during the war were nothing short of horrific, some of his post-war plans went even further. Hitler planned on collecting millions of Jewish artifacts to build a museum of an extinct race. And if the Axis powers won, he planned on declaring war against his Japanese allies in a final showdown. Sloths only have enough energy for their weekly toilet trip to the jungle floor. So if their baby ever falls to the ground, they must choose to preserve their energy and leave it to be eaten. A San Francisco man tweeted this just 5 minutes before being the victim of a random drive-by shooting. In 2015, a Colombian man had a tapeworm inside of him that got cancer. The cancer then metastasized and the man eventually died from tumors of tapeworm throughout his entire body. A 24-year-old nurse in India was set on fire by her ex-boyfriend after she rejected his advances. but police say the woman caught hold of him tightly so that he couldn't escape after killing her. While the woman died on the spot, the man suffered for days before succumbing to his injuries during treatment.